Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into this Poirot story will haunt you. A fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The enigmatic guest emerges. The storm raged outside with a fury that echoed the sense of foreboding inside the Grand Manor. Thunder cracked like a whip, and jagged flashes of lightning illuminated the ancient portraits whose eyes seemed to follow every move. In the midst of this tempest, a chilling scream pierced the night, drawing startled gasps from the guests gathered in the drawing room. The brilliance of chandelier was dimmed, almost as if the very air felt the weight of impending doom. Lying sprawled upon the plush carpet was Sir Jonathan Fitzherbert, the esteemed owner of the estate, his face a ghastly shade of ashen grey, a silver letter opener protruding grotesquely from his chest. As the guests erupted into chaos, one figure stood apart, calm amidst the pandemonium: Hercule Poirot. Even as fright and confusion invaded the once peaceful gathering, Poirot's dark brown eyes surveyed the scene with dispassionate clarity. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, keenly aware that amidst the shock and tears, pivotal truths and hidden motives were swirling like the storm outside. Among the frightened assembly, Julia Fitzherbert, the daughter of the deceased, trembled as she clutched a delicate lace handkerchief, her pale features drawn tight in horror. A woman of extraordinary beauty, she had once been a beacon of joy, but now shadows danced beneath her emerald eyes. Julia had often been dismissed as the innocent victim in various social circles, yet Poirot sensed unresolved conflict hidden beneath her facade. Then there was Dawson, Sir Jonathan's business partner, whose slick demeanor glistened with deceit. He insisted he'd been discussing important matters with Sir Jonathan mere moments before the tragedy, yet his alibi felt thin as the mist that wrapped around the estate. Lastly, the enigmatic figure of Maggie Hartley emerged from the murmurs, an enigmatic guest whose mere presence seemed to unsettle the gathering. A distant cousin, she had arrived that very evening cloaked in an air of mystery. Her dark hair framed a face of striking features, yet her eyes bore an inscrutable sadness that intrigued and unnerved. The nature of her connection to Sir Jonathan was vague and suspicious, which left Poirot's ever-curious mind prickling with questions. The storm built in intensity, rattling window panes as Poirot took command of the situation. "Mes amis, it is vital that we remain calm and clear-headed. The murder has left us with a web of secrets. I require your cooperation, for therein lies the path to unmasking the truth." He turned to Julia, the daughter, whose frame shook. "I must inquire, mademoiselle, about your father's recent business dealings. Has he made enemies?" Stricken with grief, Julia hesitated. "No, he was a man of integrity. Nobody would dare." Her voice wavered, and Poirot noted the slight tremble of her fingers as they found their way to her throat, where an emerald pendant glistened in the flickering candlelight. With quickened instincts, Poirot approached Dawson, who was pacing in agitation. "Monsieur Dawson, perhaps you can enlighten me about the investments Sir Jonathan had recently undertaken. It is said that fortune can breed envy." Dawson's brow furrowed, but he quickly masked it with a shrug. Nothing of consequence, Poirot, merely adjusting to market fluctuations. The way his eyes darted betrayed a nervous guard, piquing Poirot's interest further. Then there was Maggie, silently observing them both, her sharp gaze a mirror to Poirot's own. Under pressure, she swallowed hard, revealing nothing but a whispered, "I hope you find the truth before it's too late." Her words hung heavy in the air, laden with foreboding. Poirot could feel the tension wrap around them like a tightening noose. As he moved about the room, Poirot began to unmask the small clues that others overlooked. The gilded picture frame slightly ajar, the faint scratch marks on the nearby table, and the peculiar arrangement of the flowers on the mantelpiece, which seemed to incline more to the left as if a struggle had occurred. Each detail painted a complex tapestry, suggesting that the truth was not as simple as it appeared. Yet, as the investigation unfolded, Poirot found himself misled. A sudden noise drew him to a side room. There, a door swung open to reveal Dawson rifling through Sir Jonathan's desk. An expression of panic etched across his face. Poirot's heart raced, convinced he had cornered a perpetrator red-handed. But upon examination, he discovered Dawson was holding nothing more than an aged ledger. "I was looking for mortgage documents for Julia," Dawson stammered, finding an uneasy ally in the chaos. Just when Poirot thought he had about grasped the threads of the case, Maggie produced a letter, its creased edges whispering secrets. "This was addressed to Sir Jonathan," she said, her voice fluid and poignant. In it lay veiled threats, the kind two men hide behind masks while conducting shadowy affairs. Poirot sensed this could be the pivotal clue that revealed more about the murder scene. With the evening deepening and the storm still thundering its macabre tempo, Poirot gathered the suspects once more. "Let us face the truth," he declared, intense stillness enveloping the room. "Sir Jonathan's murder has roots deep in betrayal and bitterness. And I fear that the facade each of you wear hides something treacherous." The air thickened as Poirot shifted through their expressions, declaring each was but a character in an intricate play, fraught with harrowing stakes. Poirot felt a nagging doubt. The clues hinted at betrayal, yet the heartstrings twisted in a concealment of a more profound betrayal than mere greed. All wished to cleanse themselves of accusations, while each had a story to tell, each a motive brilliant enough to fool an untrained eye. As the hours pushed forward, Poirot's quiet resolve festered. The resolution would come, the almost saccharine promise that justice would find a way against the tempest of deception surrounding them. His methods might seem aloof, but he cultivated a connection to that ephemeral quality of truth. In the midst of revelations and revelations yet unnamed, Poirot drew upon a whispered theory, dancing finely around the truth, like shadows in flickering candlelight. This web of lives, entwined, held its breath. Betrayal awaited realization, yearning for the light, and the final truth loomed. The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest inside each soul surrounding him. What darkness trembled there? The answer surfaced like the rising wind. Poirot felt it just before the final act began. Chapter 2. Secrets in the Attic. The storm outside had transformed the Grand Manor into a prison of shadows and flickering candlelight, each thunderclap pounding like a hammer upon the hearts of those within. In the suffocating silence that followed the previous night's tragedy, the air felt thick with unspoken fears, cloying like the damp fog wrapping itself around the estate. With every shift of the wind, a new sound seemed to beckon from the depths of the ominous attic above, each creak a whispered invitation to secrets long buried. Poirot stood before the closed door of the attic, an unsettling feeling prickling at the back of his mind, urging him to ascend. As the storm rages above, mon ami, so too does the tumult within these walls, he murmured to himself, his dark eyes glinting with determination. The human heart is adept at hiding its betrayals. Therein lies the challenge he so admired. The guests had yet to calm from the chaos of Sir Jonathan Fitzherbert's murder, but the broken pieces of their lives surely held secrets yet undiscovered. As Poirot's footfalls echoed on the staircase, he took account of the three figures he would confront once more. Julia Fitzherbert, the bereaved daughter, her beauty now marred by despair; Dawson, the slick business partner, whose anxious manner was an open book of guilt; and Maggie Hartley, the enigmatic cousin, whose mysterious arrival had already set tongues wagging. What threads wove their fates together, he pondered, as he approached the attic door. With a gentle push, the door creaked open, releasing a gust of musty air, tinged with the scent of old wood and dust. The dim glow of the candle flickered uncertainly in the murky space, casting twisted shadows over the remnants of a forgotten life. Old suitcases lay stacked in disarray, relics of journeys unfinished. Dusty trunks awaited the revelation of their contents. As a gust of wind rattled the frail windows, Poirot's keen eyes caught a glimpse of something amiss, the corner of a frayed piece of fabric peeking out from beneath a trunk. "Mais oui, let us begin here," he said softly, approaching the trunk. As he carefully lifted the lid, the shadows seemed to retreat, revealing a collection of personal items belonging to Sir Jonathan: photographs, letters, and trinkets, each whispering stories of a man, long enshrouded in complexity. But amongst these artifacts, Poirot's gaze settled upon a small, blood-stained scarf. A shiver raced up his spine as he grasped the fabric. Ah, the past retains its ghosts, does it not? As he examined it more closely, Poirot could almost feel the remnants of panic radiating from the fabric. This evidence could weave a tale that led to not merely the material gain or jealousy that birthed murder, but possibly to the darker alleys of love and betrayal. Before he could delve deeper, the sound of footsteps interrupted his thoughts. "Poirot," Julia appeared suddenly, pale and trembling. "I came looking for you. I thought you might need assistance." Her eyes widened as they caught sight of the bloody scarf. "What have you found?" "The past is a tricky business, mademoiselle," Poirot replied, his tone calm yet firm. "Your father held many secrets. What can you reveal about this fabric?" Julia's expression faltered. I do not know. It does not belong to me. I should hope it belongs to one of the guests." "Ah, but the truth can only obscure itself for so long," Poirot mused, noting the tremor in her voice. "And Dawson, what of his aspirations? He craves more than mere partnership with your father, does he not?" As Julia shifted uncomfortably, the door creaked again. Dawson entered the attic, an anxious expression plastered on his face. "What are you two doing up here?" he demanded, the defensiveness snapping at his words like an exposed wire. "This is no place for—" In that moment, his gaze fell upon the scarf, and a flicker of recognition flashed in his eyes before he quickly masked it. "This belongs to a servant, surely. What significance could it possibly hold?" He stepped closer, almost too quickly, as if to snatch it away from Poirot's grasp. "Monsieur Dawson, the truth does not fear inquiry. the detective replied, his voice resonating with unshakable confidence. Secrets breed in the shadows, and I intend to unveil all that is hidden. Perhaps we should all go downstairs, Julia interjected, sensing the rising tension. There is much to discuss. But Poirot shook his head gently. No, mademoiselle. There is more to unravel here. Dawson, your alibi seems thin. Where were you before the storm hit last night? I was in the city on business. I have no obligations to anyone else's suspicions, Dawson retorted, his posture defensive, a slight quiver in his voice. Poirot's keen senses detected the fault line in his bravado. There lay another layer to Dawson's involvement. Then Maggie Hartley emerged from the shadows, a dark figure drenched in quiet intensity. You dig through the past at the peril of your futures, she warned, her voice barely above a whisper. Some secrets are better left buried. Poirot turned to her with interest. And what secret might you be guarding, mademoiselle? You arrive just as the storm unveils old grudges. Do your ties to this family hold danger or honor? The words sat heavily between them, and Maggie swallowed hard, her demeanor shifting. I shared a life with him once. A relationship clouded by time, perhaps? Poirot probed, seeing in her eyes a restrained pain. Motive can stretch beyond mere profits and losses. With each revelation, the atmosphere thickened until it became nearly unbearable. Poirot paused, for he felt that the darkness in this room was suffocating the truth itself. He needed to extract every shard of honesty from them, if he was to weave the full tapestry of betrayal. Yet even as accusations hovered, Poirot sensed a deeper treachery looming, one that revealed not only the hidden pasts of these people but also the emotional scars left behind. As he examined the scarf once more, a soft soiling trail bore witness to something far more sinister, a struggle that proved love could be as damaging as hate. With the storm still howling outside, Poirot gathered the trio before him. The blood upon this scarf does not merely belong to the fabric. It carries the weight of memories, hearts entwined, and betrayal that curls like smoke. I must ask, who truly loved Sir Jonathan, and who stood to lose the most from his demise? This revelation rippled through the group, casting shadows of suspicion everywhere. Their secrets, tightly woven into their identities, would soon be unraveled, but the truth could cut deeper than any blade. The final twist awaited, a dark truth hidden beneath layers of pretense. Poirot felt the moment tug at his intuition. Only a lie, thick with deception, could bind them all together. I shall return for answers, he decreed, his voice slicing through the tension, lingering in the charged air. In the quiet that followed, each suspect's mind began to race with the implications of Poirot's insinuations, the storm echoing their rising dread. Remember, he added with a glint of determination, the heart can play its tricks, but truth cannot be obscured forever. The storm outside is nothing compared to the tempest within. And as the shadows danced upon the attic walls, Poirot knew they all stood at the precipice of revelation, a dance with betrayal that would lead to the closure of a chapter penned by fate itself. Chapter 3. A Fatal Toast. The thunder crashed overhead as if the heavens themselves were mourning, and in the dimly lit dining room of the manor, an unseen tension simmered, igniting a darkness more profound than that which rumbled outside. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows across the faces of the assembled, revealing eyes cast downward, lips pressed together in a nervous line, and hands fidgeting in the desperate hope to conceal the truth. At the center of it all stood Poirot, his presence as sharp as the storm's edge, his mind racing with the possibilities that hung like the thick fog beyond the window. As the guests gathered around the grand dining table, Poirot observed them keenly. "My friends," he began, his voice an unwavering calm amid the storm's fury, "this night calls for reflection to those we have lost and to the dark truths we keep hidden." A chilling silence blanketed the room, pregnant with unspoken fears and lingering guilt. He raised a glass of crimson wine, its surface glistening ominously in the candlelight. "A toast," he said, with a flourish that belied the gravity of their situation. "To life, to fortune, and to the truth that must be revealed." The toast felt hollow, and the guests' hands shook as they raised their glasses, eyes darting apprehensively to one another. Three figures, in particular, caught Poirot's scrutiny. Julia Fitzherbert, her sorrow marred by a desperation that begged for release. Dawson, the partner whose anxiety crackled like static in the air, and Maggie Hartley, whose composed exterior veiled a tempest within. Each bore secrets, woven threads that formed a tapestry of betrayal unlike any he had encountered before. Poirot felt a tension knotting in his chest, an ominous warning that whispered of danger beyond mere deception. As the last echoes of their glasses clinking faded, there was a sudden crash of thunder, causing Julia to jump, spilling her wine upon the tablecloth. "Mon Dieu!" Poirot exclaimed, his eyes narrowing as he observed the deep red stain expanding. Blood-like in its hue, a reminder of the murder still fresh in their minds. A tragic coincidence, n'est-ce pas? The atmosphere thickened with an unutterable anxiety, and Poirot's keen instincts sensed that this night would unveil more than mere shadows. The first act of betrayal was upon them, a violence hidden beneath the civilized veneer of their gathering. Poirot's mind raced, weaving together the clues that had begun to unfurl. He glanced across at Dawson, who fidgeted, his foot tapping in a rhythm of unease. "Monsieur Dawson, tell me," Poirot inquired, "after the chaos of the previous night, where do you claim to have been during the storm?" The question hung in the air, a taut string set to snap. Dawson's expression faltered, a flicker of truth struggling against the shield of his bravado. "I was in the library," he stated too quickly, despite the reasonable doubt that stirred in Poirot's mind. As the storm rattled against the windows, Poirot turned his gaze to Maggie, who remained eerily calm against the backdrop of chaos. "And you, dear Mademoiselle Hartley, surely you witnessed more than you let on last night?" Poirot probed, sensing the tension curling between her lips. Maggie remained still before replying, "I was with Julia, sharing memories of my late uncle. There is no truth to be found in fabrications." Yet Poirot noted how her eyes darted, betraying the woman beneath the composed facade. With each inquiry, Poirot felt threads of suspicion entwining tighter, a noose drawing the truth closer. He needled their memories, unearthing patronizing tales, drawing out alliances hidden in shrouded whispers. He watched Julia's hands tremble, the telltale sign of raw emotion, struggling for expression. "And what of the scarf we uncovered in the attic?" Poirot's gaze darted to the freshly stained tablecloth. Surely the memories woven through that fabric involved tumultuous depths of passion and conflict. A flicker of recognition passed over Julia's face, but before she could respond, another crash of thunder obliterated their thoughts. "Tonight, we shall not allow fear to overshadow our purpose," Poirot declared, casting an authoritative glance across the room. "Let us all share our truths, as the storm must eventually pass, revealing the light once more. In the ensuing hour, their stories interwove, richly layered with half-truths and misdirects, each suspect conjuring images of innocence or guilt to conceal their true natures. Dawson's claim of being at the library transformed into a convoluted tale of late-night business dealings, his fingers clenching and unclenching in agitation. Julia spoke of her father, but her eyes still harbored unvoiced accusations, as if every word weighed her further into despair. Maggie's calm tones lulled them into a false sense of security, her past entwined impossibly with both her cousin and Sir Jonathan. The final act drew near, whispers crescendoing as Poirot poised to reveal the unfurling mystery. "Ah, but in the depths of our dance with sorrow lies the truth," he stated, his brow furrowed. An unyielding silence enveloped the room. No one has spoken of the elder servant, Margaret. Perhaps she witnessed something from the shadows. The group shifted uneasily, startled by the thought. With determination, Poirot pressed onward. "Each of you, in your quest to conceal, offers whispers that draw suspicion externally. But are these not simply reflections of your internal battles?" He let the words linger before concluding, "The relationship shared amongst you is enmeshed in complexity, but the worst lies not solely in your actions, it is the love triangles that cleave the heart of our tale." Dawson faltered, Maggie's face blanched, and Julia's heavy breaths quickened as Poirot continued unraveling. Sir Jonathan was not merely a victim of violence, he lay at the confluence of ambition, wrath, and passion that twisted your fates into an unholy bond. And when I unmasked your deceptions, who first struck the fatal blow, the heart trembles with betrayal. The revelation dawned like a sun through the clouds as the kaleidoscope of emotions erupted, as the truth danced upon whispers of love, lost courage, and the poison of envy. Poirot concluded, "Mon ami, blood ties can hold the tenderest devotion, yet twist into ugly thorns." The wind outside howled like a banshee, amplifying the tension that seemed to vibrate in the very walls surrounding them. As the realization washed over each figure, Poirot's parting words echoed in their shivering hearts. In the quest for truth, one must be as intricate as a spider's web. For love and hatred coalesce into a dangerous brew, he uttered, allowing the power of darkness to sunset into a quiet stillness. The shadows danced once more, but now they bore witness not just to the machinations of deceit, but to the bitter taste of betrayal reverberating within the very souls who dared to play in the realm of treachery. Chapter 4. Shadows of Betrayal. The crack of thunder resonated through the ancient manor, each clap echoing like a call to arms in a war long forgotten, a war that raged within the hearts of its inhabitants. The flickering candles flickered as if tormented, shadows twisting and elongating on the walls, giving form to the dark thoughts pressing upon the souls within. In this precarious atmosphere, Hercule Poirot stood in the center of the dining room, his sharp mind processing the emotional chaos enveloping him. Would the heart remain a safe haven, or would it betray them all? At the table, the three primary suspects, each gripping their chairs as if anchoring themselves against the swirling tempest, radiated anxiety. Julia Fitzherbert, once serene, now appeared frozen, her eyes darting toward the corner where the shadows coalesced, as if fearing a monster would leap forth to claim her secrets. Dawson's fingers trembled against the surface of the table, an unarticulated tremor betraying his increasingly erratic state. And then there was Maggie Hartley, her composed exterior a fragile mask over a tempest of emotions swimming in her deep-set eyes. Poirot observed them with the keen precision of a watchmaker inspecting his finest timepiece. "Mon ami," he began, his tone smoothly slicing through the tension. "The heart may be a labyrinth, yet within these walls someone has found a way to navigate its treachery. Shall we discover whose path has turned dark?" The wind howled outside, as if heralding the storm of confessions soon to unfold. He took surreptitious note of the way Dawson's breath hitched, or how Julia seemed to cling tightly to the table's edge, as if searching for stability. Maggie's gaze fell momentarily upon her own trembling hands, betraying the facade she had so artfully constructed. "Let us start with you, Mademoiselle Fitzherbert," Poirot stated, his voice steady yet authoritative. "If I recall, you were the last to see Sir Jonathan before his untimely demise. What transpired during your encounter?" The air thickened as Julia hesitated, her gaze breaking from Poirot's piercing scrutiny. "I had no such confrontation, Monsieur Poirot. I merely came to discuss family matters." "Ah, but family matters can cloak ulterior motives, no?" Poirot pressed, his mind racing. "What specifically did you discuss? Did you not express discontent with Sir Jonathan's decisions regarding the estate? Such talks would poison the waters of one's affections." At his words, the silence ruptured. Julia's eyes glimmered with unshed tears, and the muted frustration buried beneath her composed demeanor threatened to surface. "He was a stubborn man, Poirot, but I would never have wished him harm," she retorted, too quickly for Poirot's liking. A glint of movement from Dawson caught Poirot's attention, pulling him deeper into the intricacies of this unfolding mystery. "Monsieur Dawson," he inquired, "where do you claim to have spent your evening when the storm raged outside? You are navigating these shadows with certain expertise." Dawson flinched under the scrutiny, his voice a touch too steady. "The library, as I stated before. I was sorting through the company nonsense, far removed from this chaos." "Ah, the noble partner hiding behind his papers," Poirot mused, a knowing smile creeping across his lips. "But a man of business finds himself often tangled in deceit, n'est-ce pas? Witnesses—" "I told you, I was alone," Dawson snapped, frustration seeping through his cool facade. The intensity of the storm outside surged, rattling the window panes and deepening the current of dread thrumming within the room. Poirot shifted his gaze toward Maggie, the cool calm of her demeanor now betraying the faintest crack. "Mademoiselle Hartley, you've remained unperturbed amid this tempest. Perhaps you can offer us insights into the intertwining lives of those around you." She smiled, though it did little to reach her eyes. "My life, Monsieur Poirot, has been woven with many threads of sorrow, but I shall not cast suspicion upon my own family. Ah, the ties that bind us can just as easily ensnare us," Poirot replied, his expression grave. "Tell me, when you took that locket from Sir Jonathan, was it an emblem of affection, or a signal of hidden ambitions?" At his words, Maggie's demeanor shifted ever so slightly, her composure wavering under unyielding impatience. "You twist words like a serpent, Poirot. The locket belonged to my late uncle. It was a family heirloom." "Ah, but in matters of the heart, we often find ourselves entangled in deceit and love's betrayals," Poirot interjected, internal alarms signaling a tightening web of secrets. As tensions swelled and tempers flared, Poirot gradually felt the fabric of truth begin to unravel. Every whispered accusation, every guilty glance exchanged, began to coalesce into a pattern. the kind of pattern that had often led him on trails of discovery before. Yet in the midst of their tangled skeins, he needed to discern the true threads from the leading fakes. He sensed the involvement of Margaret, the elder servant, who possessed a tacit knowledge of the household. Soon, her secrets would be the key to this sordid tale. Mon ami, the paroxysm of emotions bewilders you, Poirot stated finally, his voice resonant against the storm. But let us contemplate Margaret, lurking in her shadows. She knows too much, or too little. That balance often tips toward peril. A sudden crash of thunder echoed as the group succumbed to a palpable silence. The pieces of the puzzle hung in the air, each bearing the weight of revelation shared and truths withheld. Only when each suspect appeared cornered by their own design, caught between suspicion and desperation, did Poirot raise his hand for order. The truth waits in the shadows, my dear friends. Now let us sift through this chaos, one falsehood at a time, until, at last, we unveil what lurks beneath. The greenish flicker of candlelight illuminated his resolute face, casting ominous figures across the centuries-old wall, while outside, the storm raged on. A tempest, merely an indication of the suffocating clouds gathered in hearts. Poirot understood. Within these shadows lay more than mere betrayal. They held the echoes of shattered love and concealed intentions. As the winds howled, Poirot proceeded, ever the harbinger of truth amidst chaos. His final confrontation with the shadows of betrayal, merely a dance awaiting its fatal steps, and he harbored a sliver of hope that perhaps tonight they would lay the specters of their hearts to rest. Chapter 5. The Cryptic Clue. In the heart of night, a chilling scream pierced the heavy silence, a sound so haunting that it seemed to awaken the very walls of the old manor. As the echoes faded into the storm's clamor, Hercule Poirot's fastidious mind jolted into action. The flickering candlelight cast unnerving shadows that danced in unison with the branches thrashing violently against the window, conjuring images of phantoms haunting the abode. It was no simple coincidence that an estranged member of the household had turned up dead. Sir Jonathan Fitzherbert now resided in the cold, uncaring grip of death. Yet deeper currents of dread were brewing beneath the surface, waiting to be unveiled. The guests, whose lives had intertwined in the tapestry of anguish and secrets, were gathered in the drawing room. They bore witnesses not merely to the storm, but to the sinister undercurrents of their very souls. Julia Fitzherbert, Sir Jonathan's distraught daughter, clutched a lace handkerchief, her knuckles white with anxiety as her eyes darted between Poirot and the darkened corners of the room. Dawson Blackwood, the beleaguered business partner, shifted nervously, his formidable frame trembling with suppressed fury, while Maggie Hartley, a cousin ensnared in a web of familial obligations, maintained an uneasy, placid facade, though her eyes betrayed the tumult within. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot mused silently, watching, always calculating. As Poirot surveyed the ambiance, he sensed the faintest whisper of panic beneath their decorum. I gather that the night has enveloped us not only in darkness, but in lightless secrets. His elaborate piercing gaze fell upon each of them, dissecting their facades. Allow me to navigate the tormented labyrinth of your souls. To understand, we must delve into what each of you tries so earnestly to conceal. Before he could begin, the door creaked open, and out stepped Margaret, the elder servant, who appeared both a guardian and a ghost of the manor. The candlelight caught the sheen of her weary face, framing shadows beneath her eyes. "Monsieur Poirot, the strange letter. It has surfaced," she whispered cryptically, clutching a yellowed parchment to her bosom. A palpable unease cascaded through the room, drawing eyes toward the enigmatic servant. "Ah, the cryptic clue," Poirot exclaimed, a glint in his eye as he motioned for her to present it. As Margaret unfolded the brittle letter, an unsettling aura enveloped the air. The script, handwritten in neat curls, revealed phrases of despair, intertwined with cryptic declarations about unfulfilled promises and familial betrayals echoing through time. "Murder begets a shadow, does it not?" Poirot remarked softly, and a shiver ran down his spine as he scrutinized every curve of the handwriting with a sense of foreboding. Dawson stepped forward, his voice rising with irritation. "Enough of this charade. The storm outside gives me dire discomfort. Do we not need to cast light upon the murder instead of dwelling on letters?" "Mon ami, patience is a virtue," Poirot replied smoothly, not allowing irritation to disturb his equilibrium. "The storm brings tumult to the heart, and within this parchment lies a shadow we must analyze. Tell me, Mademoiselle Fitzherbert, what can you discern of its contents?" Julia's pale complexion flushed with a mix of fear and anger as she stammered, "It speaks of my father, of his deceit. But it is foolish to think that reflecting upon this letter will yield answers. We must focus on those who lurk in shadows." Poirot's brow furrowed. A minor detail flew unnoticed past her lips, like an errant bird fleeing in the tumult of the storm. "A solid point, but we must reject simplicity in the face of complexity," he asserted, turning his gaze to the others. "Tell me, Monsieur Dawson, what of your relationship with Sir Jonathan? Was it not merely a strand of business, binding you both?" "Business binds those who remain in the light," Dawson interrupted, yet his words came laced with hostility, lighting a flicker of suspicion in Poirot's keen mind. "The man was ruthless, a demanding partner, intoxicated by ambition." Maggie remained unnervingly quiet. The trembling of her hands around the cold locket encircling her neck betrayed her stoic facade. "All men are fortresses of ambition," she remarked, "but within those walls they carry the weight of expectations, misunderstood and unfulfilled." It was then that Poirot's scrutiny sharpened, dissecting her words for hints of truth. The locket, a family heirloom, might have been a mere contextual relic, but its significance at this juncture twisted intriguingly within Poirot's mind. Each word uttered was fraught with the weight of layered motivations. As another thunderous boom erupted, the candle's flame flickered ominously. Poirot turned back to Margaret with renewed determination. "Margaret, you paused upon the threshold of a truth worth revealing. What else does the letter harbor? You, serving in the shadows, might grasp a more profound understanding. Speak plainly. Has it stoked long-held embers of dissatisfaction within your soul?" Margaret hesitated, her spindly hand curling around the letter once more, her voice quivering. "There are whispers echoing behind the walls of a partnership forged in darkness. Sir Jonathan was a man of many debts, and not merely of the financial kind. He entwined others' lives with the fabric of his guilt." As the storm raged outside, a hesitant confession slipped from Maggie's lips. "He had promised me the estate, should anything happen to him. Her breath stammered, an emotional revelation blooming painfully amongst the tension in the room. "I suspected he was navigating treacherous paths, and that the darkness of his affairs involved far more than mere business." Suddenly Poirot's mind raced, piecing together an intricate web, the suspicion that had ricocheted among the trio, darting from one to another, began to cohere into a shocking narrative. A redemption through betrayal, perhaps, was no mere accident. Each soul stood ensnared in a personal plight, and in that, the unraveling truth began to wear a face he had not anticipated, a reflection of humanity, adrift in torment. With a steady cadence, Poirot's voice rose above the din of storm and heart. Ah, the human heart, in its maximum motility, betrays itself through simple truths. Each of you bore an instrument of despair, an invitation to darkness, a dagger veiled in kind words and empty promises. And that uncertainty, oh, that dire uncertainty, undercut your trust. But fear not, for the tangled strands shall be made taut, each thread, at last, revealing its intention. As murmurs of surprise and fear erupted in the room, Poirot raised his hand for silence, a gesture resonating with authority. I have uncovered the discord lying beneath your fragile alliances. The letter, dear friends, is but a ghost, a red herring drawing in the unwary. The true cipher of this tragedy lies within the heart of betrayal itself, a twist careening toward a conclusion that threatens not only your lives, but the very essence of your being. As he drew closer, the flickering candlelight illuminated the frozen expressions of inevitability gleaming in their eyes. Just then, the storm howled with violent, unchecked frustration through the cracks and crevices of the manorial structure, echoes of repressed guilt and dark secrets replacing the comfort of an ordinary evening. With a final defusing of the tumult, Poirot breathed deeply, embodying the calm amidst chaos. And now, it is time for the truth to unfurl itself. For each of you, the moment of reckoning draws nigh. The candle will burn brightly, illuminating the path to your choices, and within the flicker, life persists, while its shadow cannot. In that moment of clarity, Poirot's final declaration echoed deeply. Remember, mes amis, the darkest nights beget the most illuminating dawns. But beware, for the sun may cast shadows upon those who seek its light selfishly. Chapter 6. The Disappearing Act. The scream reverberated through the narrow hallways of the manor, a chilling echo cutting sharply against the howling winds. A flurry of shadows danced across the walls, caught in the flickering candlelight, as if the very spirits of those who once dwelled there had come to witness the unfolding tragedy. Within moments, the source of the panic came into focus. Dawson Blackwood stood in the doorway of the drawing room, his eyes wide and incandescent with horror. In his hands was the now irrefutable evidence, a crimson-stained locket that had once belonged to Sir Jonathan Fitzherbert, the late master of the house. "Mon Dieu!" exclaimed Poirot, his voice cutting through the rising din. "This, dear Dawson, marks the unraveling of our mystery." He shifted his gaze to the guests gathered around, each face reflecting a mixture of fear and bewilderment. Julia Fitzherbert, her countenance pale as the moonlight spilling through the windows, gasped at the sight of the locket. Meanwhile, Maggie Hartley's expression betrayed a flicker of recognition, as if a door had cracked open to reveal a suppressed memory. But there was one who stood apart, Margaret, the elder servant, watching with quiet intensity, her face inscrutable, as shadows played a cruel game upon her features. "The locket was on her neck when she disappeared," Dawson shouted, his voice steeped in urgency. "We just left her in the garden. She simply vanished." "Vanished?" murmured Poirot, his brow furrowing. "Who is this she to which you refer?" "Maggie," Julia breathed, her voice trembling. "We were speaking in the garden just moments ago, and when I looked away, she was gone." "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," muttered Poirot under his breath, his mind racing through the intricate web of disquiet surrounding him. This was no mere case of a simple disappearance. This odor of fear pervaded the air, mingling with the storm's ferocity outside, a tempest raging not only against the fragile frame of the manor, but also within the hearts of its inhabitants. In hushed tones, the remaining guests conferred, their eyes darting toward the door as if expecting Maggie to re-emerge to dispel their growing dread. Poirot, however, was far more scrutinizing, every flicker of their expressions, each quiver in their voices, painting a vivid picture of their burdens. Perhaps it was the mad designs of fate that had drawn them here, or the simmering undercurrents of betrayal. Either way, something unseen had tied them to each other's fates. Upon questioning, Julia stumbled through her words. Maggie had secrets. She was in debt. Father was to help her, and I warned her to stay away from the estate. But she was always so eager, so trusting. Dawson's face darkened at the mention of debts, anger spilling over in his posture as he defended himself. Her financial worries were nothing compared to the chaos Sir Jonathan had sown. "You speak of trust, while your father manipulated every soul in this manner for the sake of his endless ambitions," Poirot interjected, eyeing both with an air of quiet authority. "Ah, but those who harbor ambition often overlook the price of their desires. Was it not Jonathan, whose ambitions precipitated these debts, who cast his darkness upon you all?" He turned to face Margaret. "And you, dear woman, what role did you play in this dark tapestry?" Margaret's expression remained cloaked in shadows. "I was merely a witness, Monsieur Poirot. I could do nothing but observe, an unwilling keeper of secrets." Taking a breath, Poirot moved through the drawing room, his keen eyes scanning the premises. The storm battered against the manor's exterior, a reminder of brewing chaos. "We must gather more than mere suspicions. We need clarity." As he inspected the remnants of a once vibrant gathering marred by tragedy, he noticed a forgotten drink. Maggie's glass, untouched, abandoned upon the table with a rose petal floating upon the surface. Mademoiselle Hartley scarcely had the time to enjoy her drink. Poirot mused aloud, his gaze affixed meaningfully on the frozen expressions around the room. "But you did not merely vanish, did you, Maggie? You disappeared into a conspiracy, a labyrinth built on trust, betrayed." As he spoke, sirens of confusion wove among the guests. Julia's eyes widened, trapped between grief and revelation. "What are you implying?" "Indeed, mademoiselle, I am suggesting that appearances can mislead even the keenest mind," Poirot said, shrugging his shoulders in gentle disbelief. "What if Maggie's disappearance was not an escape, but a calculated act, a play designed to conceal the weight of the truths that each of you carry?" Fractured glances darted among the interwoven suspects. Dawson, with his ice-cold exterior, eyed Julia with renewed suspicion. "You believe she's plotting something, hiding, when you yourself harbored grievances against your father." "The locket," murmured Margaret, her voice breaking the growing tension. The locket was not merely a family heirloom. It contained a key, a true key, one that unlocked secrets of the heart. "Then it must be located. We cannot remain prisoners of doubts," Poirot declared. Yet, as he rapidly compiled thoughts, the space thickened with an unsettling certainty. "I fear, my friends, that I have overlooked something most profound in this tangled scenario. Just then, a muffled cry from the gardens jarred everyone into silence. Poirot pivoted with resolve, and the entire group followed him outside, eyes fixated on the light seeping through the gnarled branches of the tree where Maggie had disappeared. As they approached, the shadows morphed into a figure, Maggie motionless, encased within the tempest, the locket gleaming ominously against her chest. "Ah, the disappearing act of the heart," Poirot whispered. "Not merely a vanishing, a daring facade crafted amid treacherous tides of betrayal." They reached her. A profound sense of dread coiled in their hearts. The twisted narrative of deceit began to unravel, a final twist that echoed the weight of hidden emotions and buried identities. The locket was the nexus, the key to a house built upon betrayal, cloaked as familial love. "Maggie, can you hear me?" Poirot gently prodded as she stirred, revealing a fragile narrative perched on the brink. A flicker of recognition passed through her eyes, revealing not fear, but a surprising clarity. "The locket contains the truth," she breathed weakly, "not just about my debts, but about the true cost of loyalty." Confronted by this bewildering revelation, Poirot considered the pieces before him. In their profound interweaving, he grasped the essence of what had transpired, a harrowing act of betrayal hidden beneath layers of human desire and bitterness. "Ah, my friends, in the velvet darkness of night, the mind conjures illusions that lead us astray," Poirot proclaimed, his steady voice, ringing clear as thunder outside, gradually abated. "Yet, as a detective, it is my duty to illuminate what the heart wishes to conceal. The act of disappearance was never an act of surrender, but rather one of revelation. Let us not shy from the shadows of our choices, for only through this cryptic veil can we uncover our truest selves." With resilience bolstered by understanding, the group stood united in the storm's aftermath as the revelations unfolded like a petal in the light of dawn, intertwining their fates irrevocably. Their journey, a dark path paved with luminous truth, had merely begun. In that solemn embrace of dusk and dawn, Poirot's haunting words echoed within them. "And remember, mes amis, the heart can weave the cruelest of spells, yet it is within this tapestry that our essence lies." Chapter 7. A Web of Lies. As the gales howled through the old manor, rattling the window panes like desperate hands begging for entry, a sharp scream pierced through the night, echoing in the shadows. The flickering candlelight in the drawing room cast grotesque reflections on the walls, where whispers of secrets loomed larger than life. Poirot's keen instincts kicked in, for within the cacophony of storm and terror, he sensed an urgent disturbance. Something grim awaited him, lurking just beyond the veil of civility. "What now, mes amis?" Poirot asked quietly, moving gracefully through the room, his polished shoes muffling against the thick carpet. The faint scent of smoke hung heavy in the air, mingling with the tension that roiled among the guests. The chaos carried an unsettling weight, like a storm cloud poised to unleash a fury upon their unsuspecting souls. "There's been another disappearance," Dawson Blackwood stammered, his voice trembling as he paced the drawing room. "This time, it is Julia. She was just gone." "Gone where?" Poirot's voice was clipped, yet silky, beckoning the truth to emerge. "You expect us to believe that she vanished into thin air, like a spectre in the night?" Julia's brother, Henry Fitzherbert, stood rigid beside Dawson, his pallid face lined with anxiety. "We were discussing the estate's future. A sensitive subject, I assure you. Then, one moment she was here, and the next, it was as if the darkness itself had consumed her. Poirot, however, maintained his serene demeanor, observing Henry closely. "Ah, but let us not jump to conclusions. There are shadows cradled within shadows, and surely one must not underestimate the human drive, a drive that often conceals more than it reveals." Julia's absence incited turmoil among the remaining guests, who exchanged furtive glances, their fears festering into an undercurrent of suspicion. Poirot took a moment to assess them, the faces illuminated by the hesitant glow of the candles. Each carried within their countenance not only trepidation, but veils of distrust, numbed by the haunting circumstances wrapping around them like a noose. He narrowed his gaze at Margaret, the elder servant, whose silence was as suspect as the other's frantic behavior. "Your observations, Mademoiselle Hartley. Tell me, what might you provide regarding Julia's disappearance?" Poirot inquired, his piercing eyes meeting hers. Maggie's brow furrowed as her fingers twisted nervously at her side. I could only gather that she had been feverishly worried about her father's debts. There were papers exchanged in private, and when it came to light, it seemed it was far more than simple finances. Poirot nodded, his mind weaving through the thoughts that danced like shadows in the flickering light. Both Dawson's and Henry's reactions held the essence of the crime, the threat of exposure. Ah, debts can weave a treacherous web indeed, one that ensnares even the innocent. As the storm raged outside, Poirot commenced his investigation, moving from guest to guest, unraveling whispers and hesitations like threads straining against a seam. Dawson, still agitated, confided, "Julia has always been the focus of our father's expectations. She was to inherit everything. Perhaps someone believed her position could be compromised. Or she could be a pawn in a game much larger than herself," Poirot suggested, arching an eyebrow. "Tell me, Mr. Blackwood, you harbor a strong discontent toward Sir Jonathan's legacy. Was the rivalry fueled by ambition?" "Ambition?" Dawson exhaled sharply, irritation threading his voice. "It was merely survival. My life has been nothing but anguish under the same roof that sheltered the demented whims of your father." The atmosphere thickened with tension, and Poirot, sensing the palpable animosity, wisely turned his attention to Henry. "What about you, Monsieur Fitzherbert? You appeared rather close to Julia before she vanished. Might your familial ties have stirred a passionate motive?" Henry's expression contorted with indignation. "I was no more than a concerned brother. My aim was to protect her. She is too headstrong. It would not surprise me if she made a rash decision to confront our father over the financial disarray. Was it merely family loyalty, or a deeper malice lurking beneath?" Poirot mulled it over before revealing one more piece to the puzzle. Indeed, family can shroud itself in the most exquisite lies. We must not overlook the familial conflicts that yielded dark secrets. The truth, my friends, lies buried beneath this chaotic surface. With each step he took, Poirot searched for remnants of truths hidden in plain sight. As he inspected the drawing room, he caught sight of a delicate earring glimmering beneath the table, half encased in a cluster of dust. His pulse quickened. It bore the unmistakable insignia of the Fitzherbert family, a colonial crest, entangled in an intricate pattern. It belonged to Julia. "There you are, the trace of your last movement, Mademoiselle Julia," he murmured, plucking the earring from the shadows and holding it aloft. A clue disguised amidst the detritus of falsehoods. And yet, it is curious how an emblem of family can lead to an unraveling of its very fabric. The revelation gathered momentum, and Poirot summoned the remaining guests into the drawing room once again, their anxious faces aglow from the flickering flame. "I have gathered you all here as threads in this intricate web, each predicated on your loyalties as well as your betrayals." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to settle. "I posit a theory, one rooted in the heart of desire and ambition." At that moment, an unexpected interruption shattered the tension. A figure burst through the door, soaked to the bone, gasping for breath. It was Julia. Her expression was wild, fear dancing in her eyes. "Help me. It was Henry. He tried to... Before she could finish, Poirot's mind sharpened. A red herring, but perhaps not as simple as it seems. He turned to Henry, whose pallor had deepened, revealing a storm of emotions brewing within. "You sought not only to protect, but perhaps to control her destiny, Monsieur Fitzherbert." Henry's faltering posture betrayed his guilt as the facade began to splinter. "No, you misunderstand, Poirot. I merely wanted her to escape the family's grasp before it consumed her. She was leaving to start anew." It was at that moment Poirot realized the final twist. "Ah, but the heart can play tricks, mon ami," he said, his voice echoing through the midst of chaos. "The protection you offered was laced with your own desperate ambition. You wished to keep her under your thumb." Julia stepped forward, shaking her head. Henry was not the threat. His ambition drove him, not malice. It was Margaret who harbored another secret, one that could shatter the very foundation of our family. Poirot turned sharply, this time addressing Margaret anew. "A victim or an accomplice? The truth is woven through your silence." Margaret's face shifted, the shadows betraying a fleeting moment of fear. "I was but a keeper of secrets. The debts belonged to me. Fraud I had committed, yes, but only to save Julia. I wanted her to remain with us, for she was the light in this darkness. And so, in your fervor to protect, you became entangled within this web of lies, a tragic consequence of hidden truths," Poirot concluded, his voice steady. The ticking of the clock silenced the room, and Poirot stood in the eye of the storm, having illuminated the intricate tapestry of deceit. "We are all prisoners of our choices, mes amis. Let this serve as a reminder. Thus, in the shadow of betrayal lies the essence of our existence." With a piercing gaze that encompassed everyone in the room, Poirot turned to depart, his words hanging in the stillness. "Remember, the truth, once buried, will always find its way back to the light, though the path may be ensnared in darkness." The storm outside quieted, leaving behind a profound weight, an amalgamation of betrayal and redemption coursing through the hearts of those who remain. Chapter 8. Death Knocks. Twice. The night hung heavy, thick with an unsettling stillness that wrapped around the decaying manor like a shroud. Darkness loomed, unfurling tendrils tenditiously across the desolate estate. A solitary candle flickered in the dusty drawing room, its light battling the encroaching shadows, and two figures stood unmoving, one clad in a faded nightgown, the other shrouded in uncertainty. A sudden, sharp crack of thunder resonated through the air, echoing like a warning bell, and in that moment, the figure in the nightgown, Emma Blackwood, collapsed to the floor. A scream pierced the silence, harsh and piercing, a voice belonging to Dawson Blackwood, her brother, whose face transformed into a mask of terror. Hercule Poirot, summoned yet again to the heart of chaos, strode into the room with the composed elegance that defined him. He took in the scene, eyes darting, over the pallid features of Dawson and the crumpled form of Emma. "Mon Dieu," he breathed, his voice cloaked in disbelief. "Death has deemed it necessary to visit us once more, and it appears it has come in the guise of an unexpected guest." He moved towards Emma, noting the eerie tranquility enveloping her face, untouched by the terror of the living. "Pray tell me, what misfortune has befallen this lady whose only crime was to exist within a haunted house?" Dawson stumbled back, his hands clutching at his disheveled hair, eyes wide and shrouded with shadows of doubt. I was in the study," he stammered. "When the storm hit, I thought we'd all be safe, but when I returned, she was just..." "Just what?" Poirot pressed gently, his gaze unwavering. "Do you mean she was lifeless upon this very floor, or merely whisked away like a whisper in the wind?" There was no sign of struggle, no warning. It was as if she simply ceased to breathe, Dawson gasped, his voice strangled by emotion as he crouched at her side. Poirot's attention shifted, noting the glint of something metallic near Emma's outstretched hand. It was a silver locket, its delicate chain catching the candlelight, a prized possession of the Blackwood family. A keepsake left unguarded, curiosity indeed. Was this the last remnant of her connection to life? As the tempest outside roared once more, another figure joined the scene. Margaret Hartley, the elder servant of the manor, swept in, her face a mask of grief, mingled with something darker, something like fear. "What has happened? I heard a scream," she implored, her voice trembling under the weight of her emotions. The two men turned to her, droplets of rain cascading off her collar as she flung herself into the room. "It is a tragedy, ma chère," Poirot said, a disconcerting calm outlining his inquiry. "But tragedy begets investigation. Might you enlighten us, Mademoiselle Hartley? What have you seen tonight that may cast light upon this grim spectacle?" Before she could respond, Poirot caught sight of a shadow lurking at the door, a figure cloaked in the shadows. It was Henry Fitzherbert, Julia's brother, and unbeknownst to everyone, a former lover of Emma Blackwood. "Did I hear the words, death and Emma, in the same breath?" Henry asked, his voice threadbare, betraying a tumult of emotions. Poirot's mind buzzed with rapid calculations. "Ah, mon ami, what a fine gathering we have this evening, a trifecta of hearts intertwined by family, ambition, and love. But tell me, Henry, how does this tragedy fit into your narrative?" "What do you mean?" Henry flicked his gaze nervously between his sister's body and the other two figures, his facade unraveling. "Emma was like a sister to me. She was devoted to her family, to my sister. The last thing I expected was for her to be found here, lifeless." The irony was not lost on Poirot. Here he stood, amidst silhouettes of pain and sorrow, yet each one of them bore their own burden, veiled in the cloak of night. Poirot leaned closer, observing each expression closely. He noted Dawson's clenched fists, Henry's fidgeting demeanor, and Margaret's quickened breaths. But the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Is it perhaps coincidence that Emma would cross paths with those she held dear in such a forsaken setting? Acting swiftly, Poirot turned away, embarking on a delicate dance of discovery. He paced the length of the room, brushing his fingertips across the mantel where dust had settled like forgotten memories. "Dawson," he called, "you exhibited distress. A brother's worry. Were the bonds strained? Tell me of your sister's condition before the storm unleashed its fury." She seemed overwhelmed," Dawson said, swallowing hard. Our family's debts, father's erratic behavior, but it was not enough to push her to despair. I swear. Ah, and yet despair has not lifted its pall over this household, Poirot ventured, glancing now towards Henry. And you, Monsieur Fitzherbert, saw fit to harbour any lingering affection for Miss Blackwood, did you not? Love, in its myriad forms, can oft lead to darker inclinations. Emma was not merely a whim. She was a muse, a light amid the shadows, Henry argued, yet his voice wavered, betraying an underlying frustration. To suggest, to imply that my affections led to this is absurd. Poirot's keen gaze bore into the heart of the matter. Just then, he noticed an unopened letter sticking out from under the sofa where Emma lay. With deft fingers, he retrieved it, reading the elegant script, a note in Emma's handwriting. It pleaded for a meeting, a clandestine rendezvous that spoke of shared confidences and concerns. This was enough to rattle the foundations of trust. A note curiously overlooked that indicates a secret, passionate entanglement, he proclaimed, holding it aloft. What say you, Mademoiselle Hartley? Might this not illuminate another possibility? The depths of human emotion often breed fragrances of both affection and betrayal. Margaret flinched, stammering as she attempted to compose herself. It was not. Emma had her concerns and her burdens. Family matters entwined us all. She had spoken to me of debts, Poirot interjected smoothly. Ah, the weights we carry, they can often breed mutual resentment. Yet before Margaret could divulge further, another shock burst through the air as a hush fell over the room. The ticking clock confused the senses, a morose metronome marking the tempo of deceit, and Poirot sensed the suffocating atmosphere clenching around him. Then, just as the tension ripened, a second figure appeared in the doorway, ghostly pale, paralyzed with horror. It was Julia, trembling and wild-eyed. "It's not over. There's more to this," she shrieked, her voice cracking with desperation. Poirot stepped towards her, poised for revelations. "Tell me, mademoiselle, what does your heart whisper about this night of horror?" "The debts. They were not just ours. Henry was involved. The money, he was supposed to pay it, but he did not." In that split second, Poirot's thoughts crystallized. A red herring had misled him. Betrayal coursed through the Blackwood family like blood through veins. Henry's facade crumbled as he exploded, voice like daggers. "You think this was about money? It was my family's name at stake, and all I did was protect them." But with one final realization, Poirot directed his piercing gaze back to Margaret. "You, Mademoiselle Hartley, the keeper of secrets, the initial protector, were you perhaps seeking to shield both families from unraveling? You orchestrated this tragic ending, didn't you? To weave together the threads that would hold this family together even in death." Margaret's expression shifted as her sobs turned to jagged breaths. "I loved them. I wanted to preserve the legacy held within these walls, or perhaps the real truth is far darker." Before she could draw the curtain fully, the room erupted. Dawson and Henry confronted one another, various tantalizing truths spilling forth, anger and grief intertwining as they tore at the very fabric of their relations. And in the eye of the storm stood Poirot, unwavering. The life that is lost must carry the weight of truths untold. Life may close its doors, but the repercussions echo through eternity. With the room plunged into chaos, Poirot's voice rang clear above the tumult. "Mon ami, we are but prisoners of our choices, bound to reveal the buried truths lurking in the shadows. Thus, I must say, beware that which appears unchanged, for death knocks twice, and what you see may yet unravel. Chapter 9. The Hidden Chamber. In the oppressive stillness that hung over Blackwood Manor, a sound pierced the gloom, a distant, hollow echo, as if the very walls whispered secrets to the sly winds that swept through the creaking rafters. It lingered in the form of a chilling dread, wrapping around Hercule Poirot like a dark cloak, the atmosphere laden with a melancholy anticipation. A thunderous crack split the air, momentarily illuminating the mansion's aged facade, as if casting judgment upon the sins that lay hidden within. Ah, le mal. It festers in the dark corners of the heart. Does it not? He mused silently, his intense gaze flickering like the candlelight that danced in the gloom. Amidst the tempest, Poirot had congregated the remnants of the Blackwood family, fractured souls bound by the weight of recent tragedies and lingering threats. In the drawing-room, drenched in muted shades of decay, stood Dawson Blackwood, with a countenance allowing fear to intermingle with the remnants of his lost authority. To his right, Margaret Hartley, the faithful servant, wore an expression of profound desolation, yet her eyes danced with a tempestuous flicker of something not yet revealed. Nearby, Henry Fitzherbert hovered like a moth drawn to the flame, his anxious demeanor a veil masking a much darker intent. The shadows in the room grew thicker, as if feeding off the collective tension, whispering promises of secrets yet to be uncovered. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice steady and composed, yet imbued with a weighty urgency. "The spectre of death lingers still, and the truth beckons us with an insistent finger. We must unearth the buried stories within these walls, for they hold a key to the fate that has entwined this family in darkness." His eyes traveled the length of the room, catching the glances exchanged among his audience, each a fleeting tapestry of alliance and accusation. With each passing moment, Poirot felt the weight of history, a shared burden that could at any moment erupt. The mention of secrets awakened the occupants' collective anxiety, and as the storm outside raged, Poirot resolved to begin unraveling this intricate tapestry of malice. He turned first to Dawson, observing the way the young man's fingers trembled ever so slightly as they brushed against the mantelpiece, searching for solidity. "Dawson, tell me of this chamber you mentioned, the hidden one. What mysteries lie dormant behind its door?" Dawson swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. It's been locked for years. It belonged to our father. Its contents remain a matter of family legend." His voice was thick with nostalgia, tinged with fear, as if recalling tales once meant to frighten children into obedience. Rumor has it that he kept treasures inside, letters, perhaps even evidence of dealings that could ruin us all. Poirot raised an eyebrow at the implications, a flicker of excitement igniting within him. "Evidence of dealings, you say? Perhaps, too, it harbors regrets best left sealed." A quick glance at Henry revealed a flicker of discomfort. He shifted, nearly imperceptibly, yet Poirot noted it. "And you, Monsieur Fitzherbert? Do you hold any key that unlocks either these doors or the truth?" Henry's eyebrows knit together in a defensive arch. "I knew little of my father's affairs. If there are any treasures, I certainly had no part in their keeping." A nervous chuckle escaped him, revealing a core of anxiety that skittered just beneath the surface. "I assure you, Poirot, I only seek to preserve my family's honor." The wind howled outside, echoing the turbulence within the room. "Then let us test this honor, shall we?" Poirot pressed, his keen mind racing ahead, as he noted how easily words came, yet how tightly guarded the hearts remained. He turned toward Margaret, her countenance a mixture of sorrow and fright. "Mademoiselle Hartley, do you not possess knowledge of what lies beyond that threshold?" Margaret nearly flinched, the weight of her burdens cracking the facade she had maintained. "The family strains weighed heavily upon us all. I merely served the household. The chamber has always been a mystery, that is true, but I do not know what truly resides within. It was never mine to open." Yet her voice trembled with the essence of a lie, a hidden truth layered beneath her allegiance that stirred in the depths of her heart. As the storm swelled, Poirot's attention turned back to Dawson. "We must explore this chamber, for I sense within it the very heartbeat of this mystery." With hesitation lingering in the air, Dawson nodded, guiding them down a narrow hallway lined with portraits of ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow their every step. They reached the door. Ancient and swollen with secrets, it stood imperviously against years of dust and neglect. Dawson inserted a rusted key, its surface worn smooth with age, twisting it slowly. The sound reverberated like a heartbeat in the hushed corridor. As the door creaked open, a stale wave of air rushed forth, laden with the scent of old paper and shadowed memories. Inside, darkness reigned, broken only by the flickering light of the candle in Poirot's hand. The space was cluttered with unattended memories and torn remnants of the Blackwood legacy. Old furniture lying in disarray, piles of letters yellowed with age, and a trunk at its center, locked and untouched. Poirot stepped cautiously forward, scrutinizing the scene with the laser-like precision only he possessed. "The truth teems within chaos, mon ami," he whispered softly. He rummaged through the papers, but paused suddenly, a sheet catching his eye. A letter with an ink-smeared signature, a scrawl that bore an accusation. "Your debts are due, or the consequence shall be grave." He turned to the others, the gravity of the situation dawning. Who would suffer the greatest from a debt unfulfilled? The answer is in the turbulent souls present. As suspicion began to swirl around the room, like the shadows that enveloped them, Poirot felt a pang of realization. A red herring to ensnare him, the implication of hidden affairs. He glanced back at the trunk, sensing a connection that was slippery, elusive. "We cannot leave here until we uncover what lies concealed within." Dawson knelt before the trunk, fingers shaking with a mixture of anxiety and resolve. As he pried it open, the hinges creaked in protest. What lay within struck like lightning to the heart. Old photographs materialized, yellowed with time, unveiling moments long forgotten, intertwined in deceit and betrayal. There, among the images, was a letter revealing the existence of a hidden child, an unrecognized sibling, perhaps a pawn, in the game of familial betrayal. "Dawson, this—" Poirot began, his thoughts racing amidst swirling patterns converging before his mind's eye. Could this child have been the source? Was there resentment harbored, a claim that could not die peacefully? Suddenly, the tension in the room thickened as the answers became murkier than ever. In the moment of dawning clarity, a chilling realization swept through him. The hidden chamber held not just family secrets, but the very impetus for murder. Torn apart by betrayal, the family's reputation was at stake, and with it, passions had flared unchecked. In that critical instant, the door slammed shut behind them, cloaking them in an even deeper darkness. Poirot's heart raced as he grasped the severity of their entrapment. The locked door spelled doom and binding fate. Was it merely an accident, or had someone sought to contain their revelations? He turned, the flickering light casting shadows like a curtain over their collective expressions. Who amongst you has the most to gain from hiding this truth? The accusations lingered in the air like a poignant melody, poised to strike a bitter note. As the atmosphere thickened with dread, revelations cascaded, loyalties shifted through stained glass reflections, secrets whispered, between breaths, deception lurking just beyond reach. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot murmured, his mind racing forward as pieces began to fall into place. He felt a phantom piece of the puzzle still missing, an ember lying dormant. Betrayal awaited, coiled like a snake. As the door creaked ominously behind him, the tragic threads intertwined, leading them toward a confrontation with forces that had remained hidden too long. The storm outside raged, fierce and chaotic, reflecting the storm within their souls. Lives lived in shadows now threatened to be bared to the light. With a dramatic flourish, Poirot turned towards the group, the realization striking. Murder, my friends, does not borrow indiscriminately from the past. It requires the currency of betrayal, deceit, all dressed in the finery of love or loyalty. But tonight, the truth will not remain bound. It seeks its freedom. I implore you, who stands to gain the most from this tangled web of secrets? The answer, mes amis, lies in the shadows, waiting to be unveiled. And as silence punctuated the space, a prelude before chaos erupted in the discovery of what was once hidden, Poirot knew above all that the spider had weaved its most intricate web, ensnaring even those who believed themselves untouchable. The climax awaited, laden with the promise of final revelations, sure to leave scars etched like the shadows of the past, dark, unsparing, and ablaze with the truth long buried. Chapter 10. The Final Confrontation. The air hung thick with foreboding as the ominous shadows danced on the walls, cast by flickering candlelight that struggled against the encroaching darkness. Outside, the storm howled in rage, rain battering against the windows like the desperate fingers of souls longing for release. In the dimly lit chamber of the Blackwood mansion, emotions simmered, poised to erupt at any moment. It was within this charged atmosphere that a shocking cry shattered the unsettling silence, ringing through the corridors like an unanswered prayer. The fragile facade of civility was about to break. Hercule Poirot stood centered in the room, an unyielding observer as the chaos unfolded. He noted the sudden shift in demeanor among the remaining family members, their faces pale yet animated, eyes darting nervously toward one another, revealing a tapestry of unspoken truths woven into their very beings. Dawson Blackwood, the young scion of the family, remained rooted in disbelief, his mouth agape, a storm of conflict raging behind his blue eyes. Beside him, Margaret Hartley's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a scream while the brittle lines of her facade began to crack, exposing her inner turmoil. Henry Fitzherbert, with a cough that belied his anxiety, stood apart, the tension palpable as he clutched the mantelpiece, watching his companions as a hawk scrutinizes its prey. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice low but firm, cutting through the rising din. "Who has been struck down here tonight, and why? The winds of fortune have shifted, and some are bound to lose. Let us not permit fear to cloud our quest for truth." The trembling candle then illuminated their transformed faces, a canvas of guilt, fear, and barely contained rage. Poirot's keen intellect buzzed as he collected the threads of the unfolding disaster. Before the echoes of Poirot's words faded, the sound of hurried footsteps ascended the stairs. The door burst open, and a figure stood, framed against the lightning-lit sky. Inspector Larkin, a steadfast ally, dashed in with urgency written across his brow. "Poirot, I must speak with you immediately. There's been another disturbance, one that unveils layers beyond our understanding," he exclaimed, his breath coming in sharp bursts. Poirot turned his piercing gaze onto Larkin, demanding clarity. "A continuation of the unfortunate series of events, I presume? Speak, mon ami, for time is most precious." With a fierce intensity in Larkin's eyes, he leaned in closer, confiding in hushed tones as the other characters froze, suddenly conscious of their secrets laid bare under the scrutiny of Poirot's unwavering gaze. As Larkin shared the news, one of the key players had been found, inexplicably dead, clutching a letter containing damning evidence against the Blackwood family. The realization swept through the occupants like a cold wave. Poirot watched Dawson, noticing a nearly imperceptible flicker of recognition cross his face, betraying a breadth of knowledge he had not yet revealed. "And what, may I ask, was the essence of this letter?" Poirot inquired, his voice steady despite the turmoil around them. "The letter," Larkin replied, glancing nervously at the rest, "pertained directly to a hidden child, an illegitimate offspring, believed to have connections to the family's dark past, an accusation that points fingers at treachery hidden just beyond our reach." Poirot's mind whirred, piecing together the clues like the delicate segments of a carefully designed puzzle. "Hidden identities often yield the heaviest of emotional burdens," he murmured, his eyes narrowing as he focused on each character present. "What do we know of such a child's fate? J'accuse mes amis, who amongst us bears the weight of this concealed truth?" The atmosphere thickened as Margaret's expression shifted to one of sheer torment, tears welling in her eyes. "It could ruin us all," she cried out, a quiver in her voice. "It was never my intent to keep it hidden. But when Lord Blackwood discovered the child's existence, it brought only despair." Poirot observed Henry then, whose breath quickened as the focus fell upon him. "Margaret speaks foolishly," he interjected, his voice a blend of indignation and menace. "Why should I, of all people, reveal secrets best left untouched? The past is, after all, merely an echo of choices made. Nothing can change what has already transpired." The crack in his voice spoke of buried remorse, forbidden longing, and fear that lingered just beyond the threshold. In the storm's final crescendo, Poirot felt an unseen web tighten. The details from the letter began to swirl around them, the hidden child emerging as both spectre and pawn in a game of deceit that turned deadly. With a sharp intake of breath, Poirot's heart raced in rhythm with the storm outside. But the child, one could argue, was the instrument of betrayal itself, he postulated, eyes flaring with understanding. Or rather, someone professing to protect the family's honor may have fallen into the depths of cataclysm wherein a life once shattered became reason enough for foul murder. With bated breath, the suspects exchanged glances, their collective anxiety spiraling until Poirot sensed the truth, vibrating just beneath the surface of their skirmishes. Suddenly, he noted Dawson's nervous twitch, a flicker of rage battling against sorrow that threatened to consume him. "Dawson!" Poirot turned his penetrating gaze upon him. "What do you know of this child beyond mere whispers?" The revelation shattered the trembling silence. Dawson's facade crumbled into an expression of sorrow and fury. "It was me. I brought shame upon my family," he revealed through clenched teeth, eyes wide with despair. "I was the one to find the letter, the one who wished it buried forever. But I did not kill. I could not." He fell silent, grappling with the rush of emotions, ensnared in the rapidly rolling tide of blame. Poirot allowed the truth to settle within him, calculating the final gambit of this enthralling drama. "And yet, you stood to lose everything," he declared, piecing together the strands suffused with betrayal and hidden histories. "But, mes amis, it appears I have misjudged who bore the true brunt of this deception." He turned, feasting on the tremors of the gathered souls. The killer must be someone who, amid the revelations, would stand to gain the most respect. A power shift born from confusion and the potential of revelation. "Would it not then point to you, Henry?" he continued, thrusting forward the final piece of the puzzle. The room fell into silence as Lawrence recoiled. The truth bore him down with a suffocating weight. Desire fed with envy and longing. One must consider how far one would go to safeguard one's stature, Poirot stated, his signature confidence unwavering. Suddenly, a new face emerged from the shadows, an unanticipated observer who had remained silent. Margaret gasped as a familiar voice broke through the tension. "Ah, but my dear Poirot, you speak of envy among men, yet you neglect the heart of a woman scorned." It was the real truth unmasked, amid the revelatory explosions. The figure cloaked in shadow stepped forward. The missing link re-entered the fray. Poirot took stock of the assembled crowd, piecing together the familial ties as the atmosphere crackled with an electric urgency. "What remains undisclosed in your silence may well be the very tempest that brings forth reckoning," he posited. With a final piercing glance, Poirot turned his penetrating gaze towards the trembling assembly, noting fear in their eyes as he uttered, "La vérité, it shall reveal itself in the most precarious of moments. The quest for truth binds us tightly. Sever one cord, and the web shall crumble." At that moment, as the storm reached a crescendo, reality washed over them. Betrayals entwined in love, secrets suffocating under the weight of consequence. Poirot remained, resolute, convinced that the dance of shadow and death would soon find its end in the light of revelation. Choosing to cherish the echoes of the past, he vowed that no secret would remain hidden under the shadowed remnants of the Blackwood legacy. Chapter 11. The Truth Revealed. The candlelight flickered, casting trembling shadows that danced across the portraits of the long-gone Blackwood ancestors, their eyes seeming to gaze upon the living with judgment. A low rumble of thunder rolled through the mansion, shaking the very stones as if echoing the turmoil inside. Poirot stood before the gathered suspects, the air thick with accusations and buried secrets. In that charged ambiance, the tension was palpable, and it felt as if even the walls held their breath, awaiting the unraveling of a mystery steeped in dark betrayal. Moments before, the storm had raged outside, yet within this splendid, decaying mansion, a harrowing discovery had shattered their fragile calm. A malign force had struck down a member of the very family that had shielded its secrets for far too long. The implications were damning. A letter had surfaced, a whisper of a hidden child linked to betrayal that could unravel them all. In the center of this crumbling facade of civility stood Poirot, shrewd and composed, piecing together the enigma before him. "Indeed, my friends," he intoned, his voice cutting through the oppressive silence, It is time the shadows give way to the luminosity of truth. Who among you carries the weight of this grim knowledge upon their heart? Dawson Blackwood, the young heir with eyes as deep as the stormy sea, shifted uncomfortably, his expression a tapestry of conflict and dread. Beside him, Margaret Hartley, elegant yet trembling, clutched her pearls as if they could anchor her to a facade of dignity long since adrift. Then there was Henry Fitzherbert, whose pallor had turned an alarming shade of ashen, betrayed by a quivering facade. Each person there held a piece of this dark puzzle, concealed beneath layers of societal propriety. Poirot moved slowly, observing their reactions, their twitches and their silences. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. He reflected inwardly, already sensing the turbulence beneath their polished exteriors. He sought not merely the obvious truths, but the hidden emotions that dictated their actions. With every whispered word of accusation and denial, he drank in the subtleties, the nuances that spoke of guilt, not merely from actions, but from fears and regrets entwined within their souls. He turned, his presence resonating with quiet authority, as he began to weave their narratives together. Margaret, you were gravely worried by the revelation of the letter. The accusations it carries could tarnish your image permanently. But tell me, did you take any steps to protect your perceived honor? Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. She opened her mouth to respond, caught between truth and deception. But the hesitation spoke volumes. Listen to your heart, Poirot urged, his tone a delicate entreaty. What if your actions propagated a greater evil? Did you not attempt to procure silence, or even, dare I say, conspire against the very nature of our gathering tonight? The tension in the room thickened, and Margaret's lips pressed into a tight line, revealing only her fragility beneath the poised exterior. Your insinuation frightens me, Poirot. You want to paint me as a villain, yet it was my love for the family that kept me quiet. The clash of her voice echoed through the room, laden with emotion, yet tinged with something darker, desperate even. Poirot turned his scrutiny upon Henry, observing the flickering gleam in his eyes that seemed to betray his attempts at composure. And you, Henry, your disdain for dishonor is well known. Yet, how far would you go to preserve your last vestiges of esteem? Poirot's discerning gaze penetrated, unearthing layers of resentment that festered beneath Henry's bravado. Did you utter threats, or make deals in secret to ensure the knowledge of this child remained forever hidden? Henry's voice was apprehensive, thick with unspoken truths. I don't mourn the past. I seek only to safeguard the future of the Blackwood name. That child, if such a creature exists, would only sow dissent. As the storm grew more ferocious outside, Poirot's attention shifted once more, catching sight of Dawson, who stood rigid as a statue. And, young man, what of you? You profess innocence, yet do you not harbor regrets? What folly drove you to unearth that letter? What dreams did you hope to sow, knowing the past is a shroud that cloaks all? A crack of lightning surged through the darkness, illuminating Dawson's shadowy face, contorted in anguish. I wished to shield us, to ensure our legacies were not tainted by a dishonorable secret. I loved her, Poirot. I loved that child. I was too weak to keep the truth buried. The whirlwind of confessions created a tumult, echoes of guilt stirring the tempest within them all. Poirot sensed the dance of truths entwined, each suspect woven tighter into the intricate fabric of the mystery. Yet one perfection of misdirection caught his attention. The letter had arrived only on the night of chaos, a proposed catalyst hidden by fervent emotions. Alas, the true thread that binds you all lies bewitched by a tangled tale, Poirot exclaimed as his mind raced back through the labyrinthine alleys of their discourse. A letter, yes, but to whom did it arrive first, and how did it reach the hands of the one who breathed their last with its damning weight? The room held its breath, and just when confusion threatened to drown reality, Poirot's keen recollection summoned forth clarity. "Ah, but how crafty the human heart," he breathed, embracing a dawning revelation. The room was silent as Poirot slowly turned, the spotlight of understanding settling upon an unexpected participant. "Margaret, you charmed the storm to be your ally," he declared. "You were aware all along. Though beneath the guise of fragility, your strength led you to interact with the boy's existence, perhaps even to give him up in cruel silence. Would you not do anything to protect the very prestige sewn into the fabric of your existence?" The final pieces fell into place. Margaret's desire to preserve the family's honor disguised a darker intent. But it was Henry, through misguided love, who sought to do justice for the child, an action that could have cost either of you dearly in the process. Poirot glanced between them, comprehension dawning. To bury the child's heritage, even if it necessitated murder to protect your own names, was your plan? With breathless anticipation, Poirot paused, allowing the elements of truth to overshadow them all. But the one who truly loses is a heart entwined in anguish, the one who only wanted love and acknowledgement. You, Dawson, were shackled in a past you never bore, yet one that has brought you to this moment. Margaret's expression twisted with anguish, bearing the full weight of her choices as the shadows of betrayal enveloped her. "I did it all for love," she whispered beneath the crescendo of the storm. As the truth flooded into the room, it left behind a residue of despair and revelation, a haunting reminder that choices once made could poison even the most resolute of hearts. Poirot turned, poised amid the swirling chaos, his voice melodic yet laced with gravity. "Behold, la vérité, it has unveiled itself. The shadows are now your burden to bear. Will you honor the lost, or weave anew a rancid tapestry of regret?" In the end, as the thunder rumbled once more, and the candlelight flickered wildly, one undeniable truth remained. The legacy of the Blackwood family had been irrevocably altered, and as they stood beneath the weight of their haunting secrets, one could only wonder what storms lay in wait for them beyond that dark night. Chapter 12. Echoes of the Past. Dark clouds swirled ominously above the crumbling Blackwood mansion, their shadowy tendrils reaching down like the fingers of a vengeful ghost, while a biting wind howled through the aged trees, rattling their branches with a mournful cry. Inside, the flickering candlelight cast dancing specters upon the worn walls, creating a disquieting atmosphere where secrets writhed like phantoms in the dimly lit corners. Just as the chime of an old grandfather clock resonated through the hall, a chilling scream sliced through the air, reverberating with a haunting dread that could stop even the boldest heart. Hercule Poirot remained seated at the edge of the assembly, his immaculate posture betraying none of the turmoil within. The echo of that scream had roused a familiar tension, a harbinger of truths yet to be unveiled. As he turned his keen gaze to the assembled guests, he noted the pallor of Margaret's face, the wide eyes of Dawson Blackwood, and the ashen cheeks of Henry Fitzherbert. Each of them bore the weight of a past teeming with shadows, and Poirot, sensed the darkness lurking just beneath their polished exteriors. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused inwardly. The tragic scene before him revealed a single body sprawled upon the cold marble floor, an emblem of betrayal and despair. It was Rosalind Blackwood, the matriarch, whose presence once clothed the mansion in an aura of grace. But now, her lifeless form was shrouded in the whispers of unresolved tensions, and the unearthing of long-buried secrets loomed closer than ever. The solitary candle nearby flickered, as if attempting to shield her from the darkness that threatened to engulf all. Via trembling breaths, Poirot began to piece together the jigsaw puzzle of the night. Dawson had once spoken of an elusive love, a relationship that never materialized but had haunted him. Margaret, with her poised demeanor, had her own storm regarding loyalty and shame, while Henry stood as a bulwark of pride, desperately clinging to the vestiges of a family name tainted by whispers of disrepute. Was the scream a siren, calling them towards tumultuous truths? Each suspect wore the mask of innocence, but Poirot could sense the tremors of deceit hidden in their facade. As the clock ticked on, Poirot embarked on his investigation, commanding a reverence that shifted the chaotic energy toward him. "Tell me, my friends, what lived within the shadows of your past that cast such long and ominous silhouettes?" he inquired, cutting through their silence with an elegant, probing tone. Margaret's voice quivered slightly, yet her defiance surged like a tide. "I did not even know my mother was here," she exclaimed, hands shaking, pearls clattering against one another like an unsteady heartbeat. "How could you think?" "Ah, but to think is precisely what I must, mademoiselle," Poirot replied firmly, his gaze razor-sharp. "You spoke of her so reverently, a woman of grace. Yet could there not have been a conflict, a secret that resided beneath your love? Was there not something in those silken ties that could fray under the strain of revelation?" A pause enveloped the room, heavy with unspoken words. Henry clenched his jaw, pressing his lips together as though stifling a confession. "Rosaline was not to be trifled with," he muttered. "Her wrath was a tempest of its own. She harbored ancient resentments against the whispers that sullied our family. Could it be she discovered something that made her furious? At one of us?" The room held its breath, a stillness that turned thoughts to murky waters. Poirot, like an astute fisherman, cast his net further. "And what if it were not a betrayal Bernard had committed, but one of you?" As gasps filled the air, he continued, sensing the fabric of lies tightening around them. "After all, Margaret, your threat to remain silent, and Henry, your disdain for shadows, could have compelled desperate actions." As he turned to Dawson, the young heir's visage flickered with a shadow of guilt beneath the weight of responsibility. "I loved a woman, Poirot," he confessed, his voice a mere whisper against the storm outside. "The love I once cherished dwells only in memory, but my desire for familial unity prevailed over truth. What would my mother think? What would she say of my choices?" Poirot raised a brow, momentarily reflective. "But raw emotions can mislead, my friend. Perhaps you acted not out of love, but out of fear," he posited, his glare penetrating like raindrops against a glass window. Dawson's grip on the mantel softened under scrutiny, a mere shadow of a boy, lost in a world of adult sorrow. As the night unfolded like a blooming flower traced with thorns, Poirot felt his resolve harden. Amidst the clamor of distrust, he discerned the subtle interplay of tensions. The truth, he thought, must find its wings amidst the darkness, yet would they sing a tune harmonious with integrity. It was then that a fleck of insight shimmered, revealing the line of connection withheld by layers of anguish. Ah, but between all your intertwined tales lies a single letter, a whisper lost in translation. Poirot ventured, his voice carrying the weight of understanding. Who possessed such power to wield it? Who of you wielded a weapon forged in ink, entangling destinies with but a stroke? Every eye turned to Henry. The expressions of fear mirrored the chaos within the chamber. Henry, you were to protect her, were you not? Poirot inquired sharply. Yet within that chivalrous resolve, what of your own guilt? The weight of a lineage sullied? Was it not perhaps your voice in the silence, pledging allegiance to obfuscation, that could have led to such an upheaval? The frailty of resolve was palpable, and finally it was Henry's voice that faltered beneath the crushing weight of revelation. I sought to mitigate the damage, Poirot. Rosalind's fury against the world was but the spark, and a gasp caught in the throat of the assembly, a realization dawning like embers in an abandoned fireplace, revealing the very nexus of dread. The hand that crafted the very narrative of their shared tumult had concealed a darker intent beneath a cloak of familial motive. In that fragile moment, the final twist slipped into view, a betrayal hailed not from motive, but from care. The test of love in shades multifaceted had ensnared those seeking solace, binding them tighter in a tempest of regret. Poirot's inward reflection echoed within him, judgment tempered by compassion, as he disclosed the revelation before the horrified spectators. The shadows do not bind you. It is the very heart behind the shadows that claims dominion over your present. Remember this, my dear friends. To love and to hide is to court tragedy. To abandon the heart leaves us hollow, he extolled, the final echoes of the storm fading into the recesses of chiaroscuro that enveloped them all. As the candlelight sputtered in its desperate dance, the true essence of the night settled amongst them, an inkwell of darkness embellished with tears unshed. The path forward would bear the weight of resonating echoes, a festering wound to heal the scars of yore. And Poirot, poised amidst the remnants of shattered legacies, left them to ponder the finality of truth against the backdrop of their intertwined lives. In the end, it is the choices we make that carve the shadow we cast.